But
Yeah.
thank you all for joining. Adam, thank you for taking the time to put this together. I appreciate being a part of it. What we're doing today is a little bit of an integration update webinar between Asset-Map and Redtail. Just kind of show you some of the cool new stuff that we've put together. And Adam's gonna kind of show you some really good uses for that, things like that. For those of you who don't know, as far as everybody who's on the website, my name is Rick Williamson. Everybody knows me as Ricky Redtail. I'm the lead subject matter expert here at Redtail Technology. I've been doing this for almost a decade now, which is crazy to think about. And Redtail, for the uninitiated, is the leading financial CRM in the industry. CRM being contact relationship management, client relationship management. It's all about organizing your people, the people that you work with, their relationships and things like that. It's all about making sure that you know who you're working with, when you've worked with them, how you've worked with them, really maintaining those client relationships. And Asset-Map's been an integration partner of ours for a long time. I still remember when we had you guys join us at one of our Redtail universities, what
That's
feels
right.
like forever ago. But I love the way you guys kind of put financial planning together. I love the way that you visually organize, the finances, the visuals. To me, I'm a visual guy. I like pretty colors. I like pretty patterns and graphs and things like that. And I love how you guys put that together. I love how you track and progress through the priorities and whatnot. And so obviously Adam, being the CEO and founder of Asset-Map, being here and taking the time with us to put this all together is really, really cool. Now, Adam, we talked a little bit before this. I figured it might be just a quick kind of a good guide. I think you're sharing your screen right now.
I am, yeah.
We can throw up Redtail, we can throw up the CRM and actually show the integration. You yourself said that the integration is easy enough that it's done like that.
Like
Right.
that. Yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
yeah,
First
go
of
ahead
all,
actually.
thank you for being here, and thank you everybody who's putting up with us and our craziness. If you know our two personalities, we tend to lead with authenticity, which basically means what you see is what you get. But we also have a deep passion for the advisor journey and the process that we provide. Obviously, I myself have been an advisor for many years, 20 some years. And I think what's really cool about what Redtail has been doing for years, and it's a great testament to how you just own the market, is you make it consumable, you make it affordable, and you make it easy to adopt. And that's the biggest challenge we've always seen from the financial advisor standpoint is if you got these great tools and you don't use them, they're useless, right? They're just sinks of money, right? There's not an ROI associated with it. So let's be honest about it, right? The best CRM is the one that you'll use. And so that's why I think you've done a great job making it usable. Now, in terms of Asset-Map, if you're new to Asset-Map, Asset-Map really comes out of our practice over the last 15 years. We basically found a way to visualize a household all on one page. That sounds like a panacea, but it's actually executable at any scale, regardless of complexity, if you are choiceful about how you organize that. So that has been our big intent, is just to make it easier to communicate, Ricky, with our clients and effectively say, wait, what's the intentionality of why these assets and insurances and incomes are where they are? Maybe they should be optimized. So the whole key for us is to help our collective client base of advisors have better conversations, and then of course track that information in a way that's going to be executable. Because we all know that advice is wonderful, but if you don't implement, it's just good advice, right?
Right.
That's really where we need to help people get to execution. That means workflows, it means follow-up, it means reviews, it means paying attention to clients, and so that's what we're thinking. So yeah, I'm going to throw up on the screen Redtail, because I know from having done a couple of webinars in my time. Let me see if we, how do I get out of it? Right, there you go. And there's Redtail.
Hey, there it is.
Look at that. Does that look familiar, everybody?
It does look familiar.
We thought that it would be valuable for all of you that took the time to join us to see the thing in action. You don't need to see PowerPoints on why we were to change the planet. We want to actually show you how we create efficiency. And if we can't do that in 5 minutes, then we haven't done our job. One of the things that we were really, right? Isn't that true?
It's true. A good webinar should be a short webinar.
That's right. 10-minute webinars. We're going to save actually some time for questions. So if you actually are engaged and you're paying attention, please go to the right-hand side of the menu. You'll notice a big chat bubble with a question in it. Go in there, type all your comments, make fun of us, or ask good questions. We'll repeat the good jokes afterwards to make sure that we address any of your questions, because clearly we want everybody on mute.
Absolutely.
I think what I'll do, Ricky, is I'll show the basic household creation,
Sure.
pull from Asset-Map, and I'll show how we can jump in this from Redtail. So there's two things going on, everybody. We had integration, as Ricky mentioned, that would pull household information from Redtail. I'm going to show you that. What was recently released is the ability to push from Redtail, jump into Asset-Map. So now effectively you have two access points to get into the two platforms. Why does that matter for you? It matters because number one, we're trying to get rid of redundancy of data entry. Yay! And number two, we're thinking that most advisors today are actually presenting live. And there's very often you're inside your financial planning environment and you want to jump to CRM. And you don't want to type in login, see other clients by accident. You want to get right to the data at the high level or as well as deep in, go deep. Because you may need to execute a workflow, put in a note, follow up on something that seems outstanding, live with the client. So that's the vision here. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to, as you guys know, we have the Superman, the Kents, right? These are the Kents.
We do have the Kent family in here.
The Clark Kent. So let's just look at this. So help us understand this Clark Kent family, right? So who's in
Absolutely.
this family?
So the best part about Redtail is that, again, it's all about organization, right? And if you click the Kent family right up there at the top, it is actually going to show you the family makeup of this particular household. It includes Clark, who we have designated as the head of household. Lois has been designated as the spouse. It's purely because Superman's usually the star. You can flip those. You can designate whoever you want as the head of household. It is pure, like, your choice whatsoever. And then we have Jonathan and Laura as their children. And if we wanted to add more dependents, we could. We can manage this whole section in a various, number of different ways. But what's important is that we have the family structure there, because that is what carries over. That's what one of the things that makes this integration very unique. And as you said, Adam, the ability to reduce the amount of data entry that you're doing is the key goal there. Like, that is the most important part, so that you can do all of this in Redtail, even from a prospecting standpoint, right? And Adam, I know you have some examples that you're going to give, but Redtail is the starting point of everything. That's the general idea, is that I get a prospect, I put them into Redtail. And then as I prospect that person, as I get more and more information, I fill it out in Redtail. As I get more spouse information, as I get children information, I fill it out. I build this profile, for lack of a better word, and then I can take that work that I have done, and now we can share it to Asset-Map. Now we can push it, we can pull it, we can do all kinds of fun stuff. So
Awesome.
it's really this is where it starts. We won't go through all the pointing and clicking and things like that, but this is where it all starts. And then, of course, is the Asset-Map side of things.
Well, I want to show this because I'm going to weave them both together, Ricky,
For sure.
because the thing is, so this is actually Asset-Map. You might be new for many people because we just released our new user experience. Actually came out, what's today, Tuesday? Oh, today, came out today. Look at that. It's now kind of by default your new setting. You can go back to Classic if you're not happy with us, but we don't recommend it. It's really designed for speed, with the idea that us as advisors, we're doing a lot of live presentation screen sharing these days, and I need to get right to my information. So the key for a lot of this, whether you're doing manual input or you're asking the client to do this work through our discovery tool, or you're actually going to integrations, what you're going to see here is that, let me see if I can do this. Okay. This is always the way it works. I haven't logged in for a while. It just times me out. So we
That's
gotta
always
love
the
that.
fun part.
That always works. I'm going to create, I actually have enabled 2 integrations. Now, for many of you thinking, well, oh gosh, how do you manage integrations? I'm going to show you that, we've got a good number of them that are enabled for the new UX. And you can see that I have a couple here turned on. I have Riskalyze, I have Redtail, I've got a couple of others that are coming. But it's super easy. Just put in your credentials here, boom, and you're done, you're connected. You can now search for any household. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring a household in from Redtail, and I'm going to do what he said. I'm going to go to the Kent family. I'm going to look for the Kents. Are there any Kents? There's a bunch, okay? But it turns out we know that Clark is, and I don't know if you guys can see this, but Let me see if I got my pen tools. Here you go. You can see that he's actually part of a household. And so I'm going to actually import this entire household. It's going to ask me, hey, let me zoom in here for you. Are you trying to bring in this entire household, or you just want to bring in this singular person? Well, I'm going to bring in the whole household. It was as simple as that. Okay. Now I brought over this entire relationship group from Redtail as a household, and I'm building that now actively, and we're going to go check it out. Let's view them today and see what happens. Okay. All right. All right, so our milestones. Now, we don't have any financial information because we've chosen in this phase not to bring over the financial information, but this should be familiar to you, right? We're starting to see Asset-Map. You can see that they're linked. Watch what happens when I click on Clark Kent. I now also have all of this information filled out, and I also have access to Redtail information at a high level. So I don't have to jump back into the system if I don't want to. If I just want to pick up the phone, I can pick up the phone and call them. I can email them, or I could jump back to Redtail from Asset-Map for those people that I want to look up something really quickly. I don't now have to wonder where that information is. I can jump right to it. Okay.
That part's really cool. That part right there is really cool because there are a lot of similar integrations that push and pull information and things like that, but there are not many of them that allow for a direct jump back to the client. So that is saving you a couple of extra steps, whereas other ones might have you go back to Redtail, search for it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's exactly the idea here. And now we have, if I X this out, Lois has the same thing. I can pull live from Redtail, keep it up to date, do something. And of course, we always tend to think of, gosh, what's going on with the kids? So if I just look at the kids next to each other, we've got that same access back to their contact record. I got to set up an UGMA. I got to do a 529. Grandpa's got some inheritance coming down. I want to catalog that. I can do that in a couple of different ways. So a very effective way to start pulling over the information that you need high level from Redtail to Asset-Map, and then give me a deep link back so you can get all the functionality that you want in Redtail. Okay. Now, a lot of you who have never seen Asset-Map and say, well, wait a minute, you're saying so it's basically just a picture diagram? Well, no, asset maps don't always, this would look like a pretty empty household. We typically then provide what we call stencils for those of us that don't want to think. Maybe you want to do some high level fact finding, you can do that, and we can apply all of the boxes and instruments that typically we would see on this family if we didn't know anything about them. So if you don't know already, Asset-Map is intended to be an interactive visual display of intention, right? Why do we have these assets? Why are we missing these? Should we move these around? Is there efficiency that can be created here by choosing what's on your map as opposed to not choosing and just basically being haphazard? So there you go. I don't know what happened. Getting really slow internet over here.
It happens. The technology never works the way that we want it to
Oh,
work.
that's always the way it works, right? One of the cool things I'll share with you, and I think this is already preloaded because that way it'll get me to I think the household, the Ben Franklin household, has a good amount of integrations. Yeah, here we go. So this one, this is a great idea of what households tend to look like after you put some information in them, right? This one actually is showing all of the stuff that this family has. Everything from real estate and mortgages, property, casualty, annuities. You can see Riskalyze here represented, qualified assets, income sources, insurance policies over the top. So when you get used to this financial x-ray, if you will, this is a great way to start communicating. You can imagine being live, Rickley, with this client. I'm meeting with Ben. I can see the disparity between their risk profile and, oh, you know what? We want to just jump to Redtail, and boom, I can pull the Redtail information, or we could talk about Riskalyze information. I think there's not to promote what they're doing, to show how common advisors are tending to use this information. And then of course our embedded drawing tools to show, hey, you know what? We got to move this. Let's see if we can get rid of this. Let's move this to a trust, et cetera, et cetera. Do what we do as advisors.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that it ties all in. Like, one of the things that I have seen integrations evolve more and more into, and one of the things that you're tapping into right now, is the ability is not just the sharing of information, but the little windows into the integration partners without ever leaving the platform whatsoever. And so your ability to go in and see Redtail contact information right there, your ability to go in and see risk numbers all right there. You don't have to leave it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to have any type of additional navigation built in, is really cool. And that's like kind of the next wave of integration. I don't know what the word is, style or
Yeah.
function, I guess.
Well, you know what I think where Redtail really did something well is they said, what is the critical stuff my advisors need in their face all the time? That's the stuff I'm going to give you. Everything else could be on a different screen. Okay. Let's be
Exactly.
honest. We're not making decisions about all the information. We just need the high level information. I think that's where we, I think, took a lesson from you as industry leaders. Say, how do we get this down to its simplest form, but not lose, we'll call it the technical purity of the information I might need to talk about
Right.
with that client. Like, why do we
Right.
have this much money over here? And should we put it someplace else? Should we look at the risk out? The intentionality, I think, is really important. I think you guys have really rocked it.
Very much so.
I know we've got some questions out there from the crew. Allison, does anyone want to come on or offer what questions we're getting so we can get right to it?
Oh yeah, sure. So a couple questions, comments. New UX looks great. Thank you, Gregory. And let's see what we've got here. Someone said they love short webinars as well. So that's nice. All right, here we go.
Because they've been forced to do them for a year.
Yeah. Let's see. Any way we can show, or can you discuss group long-term disability, Adam? Is that a potential field in Asset-Map?
Yeah, disability exists in several different forms: individual or group, taxable, non-taxable, short-term, long-term. So yeah, you can handle all of any. Here's the insurances we handle: is life and all the forms of life insurance, disability, long-term care, property and casualty, which is basically property and casualty liability coverages. They can be tied to instruments. It can be connected to properties or people. Right. We can handle pretty much anything you can think of at this point, asset-wise, split interest, properties, trusts, LLPs owned by a trust. Yeah, we can map it pretty interestingly. And I think that one of the cooler things we've done recently is we've added this household function. So if I want to include, everybody in the household, and let's include the islets and the family foundation, but we'll take grandma out. What does that whole household picture look like? PDF it, go right to my meeting. So we've been big fans of the reason why we think this integration works really well is because I want a 5-minute prep for a meeting. I want to walk right in and let's say, okay, let's talk about the asset map in its current form. Oh, we need to go in, let's dig, like what Ricky said, let's dig into the information and then dig out, right? Zoom in, zoom out, right? Just like a Google GPS, right? Show me all the restaurants. Oh, hey, let's go to this one. No, I don't want to go there. Let's go to this one. So I think the key is to try to create interactivity, because I would tell everybody who's on the call, we are moving to a place, whether you go back to face-to-face or you stay remote, where our meetings are going to have higher production value. I mean, look at this. We're semi-entertaining you because we're entertaining ourselves, right? Let's be honest. There you go. But we know that if you can you do that? I mean, maybe not. We already got lambasted for the hair thing. So I heard what you said, David, just so you know. It's all good. We have to create production value. I mean, look, everybody's sitting at home watching Netflix and The Bachelor or whatever they're watching. And these reality television shows are creating a standard of how we have to present when you're doing video-based production. And I don't think that clients have any tolerance for just a bad Zoom meeting anymore, right? You got to keep it moving. You got to keep it engaging. You got to keep it visual. And also have the auditory speed and stimulus in order to keep people part of your show, if you will, or you lose them. Part of what we're trying to do with Asset-Map is, can I get the best of what I want from my integration partners in that environment, but not have to be forced to use that UX. I mean, I wouldn't typically put CRM in front of a client meeting.
Right.
CRM is for me.
Right.
But you can imagine there's other planning tools that are going to become valuable, which we might want to integrate too.
And you showed So one of my favorite features is that so if you go back to the contact record Clark Kent, once that integration is all happen, and if you're in that back office CRM type look, you can click right on the integration icon and literally pull up this asset map report from directly into Redtail. Like you don't have to navigate over to asset map and find it. You just have, yeah, there you go, Adam. You just click that integration icon, find asset map, and then literally you have the ability to launch the report. You can manage some summaries and stuff, but launching that report, boom, takes you right into, now you're in the client facing side of things. And obviously there are no assets, there are no accounts, so it's not going to look, there's not going to be much of anything there. Or yeah, there's going to be all
Well,
that
I
kind
put
of
the
stuff and a
stencil, yeah.
bunch of small dollars amounts and things like that.
Well, I did
One
that
of the
on
things,
yeah.
one of the things is that I did see a question, not to jump ahead on you, Allison, but I did see a question about like reporting assets and reporting accounts and things like that, because they do feed into Redtail. But this integration does not share those numbers, right? This is purely that account level information, that family structure information. So obviously, you know, Asset Map is going to be able to bring in those accounts and those things in their own way. So odds are you're going to want to do it that way, and then you'll have that full picture inside of Asset Map.
Yeah, and look, the reality is we've found that, you know, when you tend to see a lot of households, the reason that this fact finder applies so many boxes, because a typical household has 25, 26 financial instruments. If you add up all their benefit programs, right, life, disability, whatever they've got, health, a 401k, stock options if they've got it, a pension maybe, the income source, the brokerage, a checking, it adds up really fast. And a lot of these things aren't aggregated and they're not in a single source. So we found that it's actually better for me to say, hey, Ricky, by the way, you know, how much cash are you keeping at the bank today? Oh, you know, and he just tells me, well, oh, by the way, that's interesting. Put me in the old UX. I've got, you know, at Wells Fargo, I've got actually a whole bunch of money. Oh, no way. Let's do something about that, right? The opportunity to do that live is really important. And so we want to be less reliant upon source of truth data, right?
Yeah.
And ask the client for confirmation, unless we manage it. If we manage it, then clearly we should update the map for them. And so forth. There are also other ways to export and import into Asset Map, which we can talk about privately. If anybody has a significant amount of data on a client, they really don't want to rekey it, there is Excel uploadability into Asset Map. And export too, if you need it. So
Yeah.
that's something.
Yeah, definitely. That big key. I mean, most with integrations, Adam, click on that integration icon again up at the top right. Like once that integration is enabled, all you have to do is find that icon, find Asset Map, and then your functionality is built into it. So you find Asset Map, you open it up, and because those things are connected, because these two tools are connected, you now see that launch asset map report. You can launch the household summary, taking you directly into Asset Map. Really cool stuff. You can also link from there because Clark's already linked, but you could link from that page too. So it's a lot of fun functionality.
Wait, Bruce Wayne is in here, right?
Bruce Wayne is in here. Absolutely, Bruce Wayne.
Is that under? Wait, where is Bruce Wayne? Is he under
Scroll
Wayne
down.
Enterprise?
We got a few Waynes.
Oh, I gotta scroll.
There
Okay.
he is.
Okay, let's try something we've never tried before. Can we try it?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Now we know that, and literally this is not scripted. We're gonna try something.
We're just doing it live. You know, this is the fun part of live.
We're the pyramid thing. This is all new. We never saw it. So if I do this, I can create a household right from Redtail.
Right from Redtail.
All right, let's try it. Let's see what I've never seen it. This is great.
So to load up, it should, I believe it actually looks for existing households. So linked, so there's already one existing. There's already one, looks like Bruce Wayne is already linked there. So we could unlink it and start from scratch.
I don't think so. I think I just created it because we're using my login. I didn't have any Waynes in mine.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah, there you go, man. This is brand new.
Old man Bruce Wayne.
Bill Bruce. Okay, so Bruce didn't have a family. You can see, by the way, that his information's locked down. So once we're pulling it from Redtail, Redtail's the source of truth. We can't override it in Asset Map because we're not trying to do that, right? We're trying to keep the Redtail data pure. Granted, I'm now somehow I got kicked to the old UX, but the important part here is that we get the same effective information now and I just launched that and moved it from Redtail. So if you're there and you want to move it instead of pulling it, pretty cool way. If Bruce had had a family, it would have all moved over.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of his universal struggle, isn't it?
It truly is. Nobody's connected in his. Wait, Albert. What about Albert?
Alfred.
Alfred.
He's well. That actually brings up another interesting question. That I'm gonna kind of weave into one of the first questions we got from Redtail perspective was, how do you connect a non-dependent child to the family in Redtail? The question is, the answer is you're not supposed to. The family in Redtail is designed to be spouses and dependents only. Now you can list different types of dependents, like we have child, grandchild, other. But in Asset-Map, they're always going to be listed as dependent because the family definition in Redtail is the tax definition of a family. So we have other ways to connect non-dependent children to their parents, like memberships, for example, but those have nothing to do with the integration. The integration is purely about the family construction, and with Redtail, it's about the tax definition of that family. So if they're not dependents, they should be their own family. They should have a whole new, they should be like Bruce, like a single person, a single record, and building out their family and their household on their own.
Interesting. So that's a really great understanding, because one of the things that we focused a bunch on in, where am I here? There we go. Is this concept that very often families or households include people that are actually wouldn't normally be in a traditional household. So one of the nuances that we would recognize is that we knew that sometimes there's financial dependencies amongst people, like my mother. I happen to own a policy on my parent. Okay, I pay the premium. Maybe I bought her long-term care. For purposes of the householding, for only that financial instrument, she's part of my household, because I need an owner, right, of the policy. Needs to have a recognized contact record.
Right.
If that came over into Redtail, that would, the key is in what's going to be in Redtail is going to be the actual family. So if you add them in Asset-Map information does not push back to Redtail. The reason is because we want one source of truth. It's smarter to have the Redtail or the CRM be the source of truth for all notes, workflows, and the client management, so that it doesn't then get messed up. Okay. Now, we recognize that might create some workflow issues for some of you. If you've met with the client in Asset-Map and they weren't in Redtail, it does mean that you're going to need to get them into Redtail at some point. We're not pushing to Redtail, but hey, there's other integrations that could be done. We could talk about it if there's enough demand.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Allison, anything else we should be talking about?
Yeah, I think this is a great question that came in. You spoke briefly about stencils, Adam. Is it possible for advisors to create their own custom stencils or templates specific to their practice?
Yeah, absolutely. The stencils is basically a concept of, if you remember when we were kids, we had those green plastic perfect stencils. You could draw circles and squares, and if you were square deficit disorder, you would have these stencils. So the idea is that you can basically apply a whole bunch of different stencils. You can also create your own. Here's examples of ones I made for myself, for a farmer, and insurance, and we have advisors that have executives at Google and retirees. So these are ones I created myself. And you can, and not to get into it too much, but you can apply parts or sections of stencils also to households. If you just want to talk about concepts like, let's say, college savings, or how does this, what are people typically using for college savings, or what are they doing for executive benefits, or somebody said group benefits. You can build all kinds of household scenarios for entities, people, trusts, companies, business partners, whatever you can imagine. You can pretty much build it with this structure. Allison, I'm looking at the list.
Yes, for more questions.
Yes, for questions.
Yeah, we have more questions. Let's see what we've got here. When you link Redtail and MoneyGuide Pro, are there still duplicate clients, or have we cleaned that up? I do believe that's something that we are currently working on, and I'll answer this one just because I tend to stay up with the integrations. We're working on an update with MoneyGuide as well, so I think that falls under that category. So more to come on that, and thanks for the question. But again, we're in a kind of phase 2 with MoneyGuide as well, and that's being worked on.
Yeah.
see what
Okay.
else we've got here.
There was also a question. There was one looking for a new CRM. Hey, that's where I get a little excited here. What cost options does Redtail offer? Redtail is $99 a month for up to 15 users. It's not per user, it's per group of 15. So if you're a single person shop, 99 bucks. If you want to add assistants, admins, other advisors, doesn't change the price. Up to 15 users. Now, we do have discounts based on broker-dealer affiliation or custodian information, so I'd recommend reaching out to our sales team for discounts, but it's month to month. There's no contracts. There's no lock-in times. It's like a magazine subscription.
Thank you, Ricky. Mr. Holt, one more time, integration request to show something. Please show how you got to Asset Map report from Redtail slowly, LOL.
Yeah, that's impossible. It's too fast.
We're from Philadelphia. We're fast. It's just what
We
happens.
move quick.
That's right. Show how I go from Redtail to Asset Map.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to go to Redtail. I'm going to go to this household we just created, which was Kent. I'm going to go to Clark. And I'm going to open Clark Kent. All right, I'm going to go to the integrations tab at the top, which is this funny whatever, like
a connection icon, I guess.
Look, they pick up jacks, like the jacks from
there you
would step on them as a kid. Okay, and I went down to Asset Map. I clicked on it, and it gave me a couple of options here because there is a linked connection here going on. All right, so there you go.
Adam,
yeah.
You actually there's actually another function here that's low key impressive, which is that this integration and this particular pop-up that happens, it recognizes the contact that you're on. So if you're on Clark Kent, it knows you're on Clark Kent. Asset Map, the integration knows you're on Clark Kent. When you go to Bruce Wayne, it recognizes that. If you're not on a contact at all, if you're on like the Today page or whatever, you don't have an ability to launch a household summary or launch an asset map report because there is none of those things on like a calendar, for example. So that type of responsive functionality is actually something that's really important because then it really keeps you on track with the single client you're working with.
Yeah, that's a great point. I did see a question in there, Allison, while you're looking up other questions for how you get financial information. So some of the biggest questions that you should be asking as advisors, okay, well, that's cool. So I got the family in there. Now, how do I get the financial information? There are several different integrations where we can get the finances. Orion being one of them. Riskalyze is another. Someone recently informed me that if you go with Riskalyze, you can bring over anything that's pushed to Riskalyze. Not just the accounts that we are tracking or they're tracking risk scores for. So typically we tend to see workflow like Orion was commented in there. Orion pushed to Riskalyze, Riskalyze to us. So we tend to work really well with two active integrations, a CRM, Redtail, and investment analytics, where you're getting a second layer of information. In other words, not just account level information. So as an example, Orion, we can bring over not only accounts, but also performance. So imagine being able to just click on any of these boxes. It's not enabled for today. And I can see Orion's performance for that specific account or household live. And then jump in, just as we did with Redtail, jump into the account. Same thing with Riskalyze. TD Ameritrade is another example of that. But I would send, obviously for this purpose of this discussion, we both have integrations with all of those companies.
Yeah.
And so the key is that you probably, as a recovering practitioner, you probably can manage 2, maybe 3 integrations of your tools before it starts getting a little bit like, whoa, there's a lot of spider web in here. And if something goes wrong or breaks, you run the risk of assuming and not confirming. So that's my disclaimer for integrations, is that make sure that you're double checking, because we've heard these things can break every once in a while. And at the end of the day, you're responsible to these clients. And I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. It's basically, when it comes to feeding accounts, it's basically like, you just think, it's almost like that icon that we showed, where it's just like you have Asset Map and Redtail and they connect. Then you have Orion and Redtail connect, Orion and Asset Map connect. And so like, even though the flow isn't a universal circle, you can build those connections so that You're pushing over the contact information into Asset-Map. You're pushing over the financial information into both so that they do mirror each other, even though that information isn't being shared directly between us and Asset-Map. And that, I think, Adam, you bring up an excellent point, which is just like, be on top. You know, things, I hate to say it as a technology person, but Adam, you would agree with me. Like sometimes things break, sometimes things are a little bit slower. So it's important to keep an eye on that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I see a couple of questions here about financial planning. You know, there are fantastic financial planning tools. I know Redtail in the recent T3 survey, you guys rocked it again. Clearly having ownership for a reason, right? There's a reason adoption is the new innovation and everybody's adopting Redtail, right? That's the key. For us, we did really well this year. We got the highest rating for financial planning tools. So for those of you that are saying, well, I don't understand how this map is a financial planning tool. Well, as Bob Perez and Joel said, we actually have fully integrated financial planning in Asset-Map. We just know that a lot of advisors have a loyalty to a typical process and a system. Our whole concept of financial planning was speed. So we wanted to do financial planning in 1 or 2 pages, not 80 pages. So that's where our differentiation is. And of course, focus on just communicating how funded we are and what do we need to do about it as a family, because we tend to be very action oriented of you need to save $2,200 and I need to figure out a way to net 4% net of expenses. If we do that, we should be okay. Now let's ask, are we actually doing that? So you can see, is Asset-Map financial planning? Yeah, we're more important than that. Like we're in about engagement, right? Engaging and helping people make decisions. In conjunction with a Redtail and a fantastic CRM, you are mighty dangerous. Okay, this doesn't have to get complicated, and it doesn't have to be a tech stack of $10,000 a month and spend. We can be very scrappy and deliver great value, I think, cohesively, and so that's one of the reasons why we're profiling this integration specifically. All right, Allison, anything else? I know we're at about 40.
Yeah, we've got questions pouring in. And for those of you who, if we don't get to all of the questions, I just threw my email address in the chat. You guys can always feel free to email me and I'll make sure you get to the right person as well, whether it be at Redtail or Asset-Map, just as a heads up. So let's see what else we've got here, folks. A couple questions on approvals, things like that. I tried to respond to most of them individually. Let's see, sorry. Question, are either companies considering an integration with Right Capital? So Adam kind of addressed that, but Rick, I don't know if that's on your roadmap either.
I'm almost certain we do have one already. I don't know the details of it, but I'm almost certain that we have one. Yes, we do.
Okay.
One of my recommendations is to reach out to our support team if you want more details, or you can just go to our help desk. It's just help.redtailtechnology.com and use the search in the top right-hand corner to search for any service that you think we should integrate with. We integrate with a ton of people, so Right Capital's there for sure. And I just did the same thing just to double check and make sure it's there. But you can find more information on our help desk.
That's great. To answer a quick question, we do handle property and casualty in Asset-Map, so that is something that we can handle in the Asset-Map. So that's one of the questions that came in. Adam, if you could quickly pop up, and I know we're going to wrap up here shortly, but the ability to really highlight business ownership in Asset-Map, I think we do wonderfully, and that's a question that came in: how to deal with LLCs or companies where multiple people might have ownership.
Yeah, sure. So this, and of course, I'm in a demo login. So, typically what we tend to see is, actually, let me do it this way. This is an example of the household we're looking at is the Ben and Betsy Ross family. I mentioned when you have financial dependencies, such as a business partner, in this case, Jeff Stars is a business partner to Betsy Ross. They have a company called Flags Are Us. See, we're in Philadelphia. Instead of going superhero, we went with like Hamilton, right?
Makes sense.
So there you go. So here's Jeff. We know a couple of things. There you go. He's got a split interest in this business of flags worth, his piece is worth $1 million. So if I were to click on this instrument, you would see that it's a $2 million value and it's split interest between Betsy and Jeff. I can control this down to, I think, the 100th percentile. The same concept would work for entities, family limited partnerships. And you can then have assets owned by those partnerships. And it should be reflected accurately on the balance sheets. So, the way that most most accountants work or financial advisors, they'll tend to look at the balance sheet and they'll tend to say, well, you know what, I want to see, you know, what does the company look like next to Betsy, and we're going to do a balance sheet test. You know, I'm getting technical on you, but there's one of the things that we've been really sensitive to the fact is that despite we want to do Fisher Price planning, we can't be perceived as kids with crayons, right? This still has to be consumable, but also technically sound in order for it to work in as many jurisdictions as Asset-Map works today. So the key is that, you know, we can tend to see split interests and ownerships in lots of different types of vehicles, right? Not the least of which are the ones I have here, an LLC and an ILIT, and then showing that in its traditional form, but also showing it in its asset map form. Look how fast I can switch between those views. Like, that's really the kind of conversation that clients appreciate, and then, you know, forcing that conversation. So I know we're not intended to show all of that, but just to plant the seed that it's possible. Obviously, there are ways to reach out, support at assetmap.com, as well as our sales team as well, if you're thinking about it.
I think that really is most of the questions. Again, I answered a bunch privately for those who asked, you know, certain compliance questions, things like that. You're always feel free to reach out to us. Like Adam said, we're happy to help. And I know same goes for Redtail. A couple comments on they loved how you guys went rogue and did your own thing today, and it was a very interactive webinar, and I agree. So a few comments on just your, you know, having a kind of comedy hour / integration webinar, and that was certainly nice feedback.
Shouts out to Stephanie. Stephanie's on the call. I haven't seen her in years, but it's always nice to reconnect with her.
Nice. Yeah, she's calling out Philly, which is we're down with as well. So thanks, Stephanie. Okay, Allison, anything else, housekeeping or other kind of essential questions that people need? I know I know a lot of the questions were answered in line. So if you didn't get your answer again, please reach out to our teams and we'll get you an answer as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Certainly, we did record today as well. So that was one question that came up a bit. You know, if friends or colleagues would find this session interesting, we have recorded it. And a couple of you mentioned that you missed a couple parts as well. So yes, absolutely, we'll be following up with a recording, and feel free to share that as well. And I think that's it as far as housekeeping goes. We'll be in touch as far as follow-up. And if you need anything, again, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks, Stephanie, for I see all your comments, so they're top of mind. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Allison. Thank the entire team.
Likewise, thank you for everybody who decided to join on. Adam, it's always a pleasure. Allison, thank you for helping manage this and running Q&A. I really appreciate it. But yeah, other than parroting what everybody else has always said, have fun, have a good rest of the day. Really, really appreciate the time.
Absolutely. I remember the same thing. High five, man. High five. Bam.
Nice job, guys.
High five. Take care, everybody. Be good.
Thanks, guys.